Hello, fellow agents. Steve Schlueter with NeverEndingReferrals. Hey, we're going to have an important conversation today about pricing in this extreme seller's market. What are the conversations we even have with sellers today to get the price right? Is it just a crapshoot and we throw something up there? I'm going to suggest that it shouldn't be. I'm going to suggest that you should be very tactical as you would in any market. And I'm going to give you a philosophy around pricing that I believe is going to be just right for this market right now, using a tool that I call the Intelligent Seller's Guide to Pricing. Now, this is something I've used for years and with a twist in this particular market. So let me walk you through this. And we start off with, what are the factors that really determine price? And by the way, if I were really needing to educate somebody to make a good, sound pricing decision, I wouldn't go make a slide out of this. I would draw it out on a legal pad. And that will be an education. We're educating somebody. We're not selling somebody on a particular price. We're helping them make the best decision in their market, your market, for what they want to accomplish. So let's take a look at this. So typically in the past when we used this, we would say to a seller, there's three prices for every home. There's wholesale, there's market, and then there's premium. Now today we're in a completely different market and we got a new category. We're calling it Premium Plus. This is that off in the stratosphere price that people are up bidding some of these properties. One example in one of my own offices, $400,000 probably market value property listed for $450,000, closed for $618,000. Yeah, it was close to Apple and, it was in the heart of a certain area. And yet that's the nature of some of our markets. And some of those markets, it's not the nature. And either way, this is a conversation that these are the factors that determine where we price it regardless of what the market is. But today we're going to keep the focus on the hyper silly market that many of you are in today. And so there's three prices, now four prices for every single home. And what determines where, Mr. and Ms. Seller, we're going to price yours today is the trend. And I will have drawn this right here this way. And we're either trending towards a seller's market or at a seller's market, which we are today. We're at the top. Or we're trending towards a buyer's market. And what we think about when we think about trend, there's also a risk element that comes into where we choose to price it. If I go to the very, very top, I might run the risk that any kind of little market shift is going to have me completely out of the market. Any influx of inventory is going to have me maybe completely out of the market because people aren't doing the crazy premium pricing that they might have otherwise when there was nothing for sale. So what's the risk right now? The risk, and it's not the same in every market, you're going to have to do some homework and say, what is the risk factor in my market? If your market has had a lot of layoffs, a lot of people unemployed, and a lot of people are in forbearance, there is a day of reckoning coming. And of course, there's considerations now to take forbearance all the way through the end of 2021, as we sit here in April of 2021. And yet, think about this. Every month that's going by, these folks are not making their mortgage payment. They're getting deeper in the hole. Their escrow accounts aren't being funded. And so that's coming due. And some of these folks, they're not going to wait this thing all the way out. They're going to recognize that there's a market right here where I'm still an equity seller. I can get out of this thing, and they're going to jump into the market potentially and get out. Now, I'm in the Austin and San Antonio markets, and for us, that's very low unemployment, not tremendous forbearance inventory, but if you're in other parts of the country, it might be the case, and you have to be worried about if that hits the market, could I have what's been an extreme seller's market slide back, not to a buyer's market necessarily, but come back towards the middle. And if it comes back towards the middle, and we have 3 or 4 months of supply of inventory, do I have the same bidding going on? Do I have people willing to pay the high premiums? And the answer is you have a lot less of that. You'll have it for the absolute very best listings and not for every listing. Now, the other factor that plays in is condition and timing. Now, if it's staged model home quality, that pulls it up, right? It's going to go for more towards premium pricing, maybe a premium plus if it's like a model home pristine. If it's got deferred maintenance and neglect, it's going to pull it back towards the middle or maybe even lower than middle, depending on just how bad it might be. And then there's time. How much time do they have to get this done and get it moved? Now, time can be their ally when the market's going up. If we start to see a softening, time is not their friend, and they would want to be positioned to be one of the next ones sold. So going back to sitting with a seller today, and what would be an ideal price? And when we talk about market, can you really call all this stuff selling at 20, 25, 50, 40, 30% over list market? It is kind of in the moment, and yet it's this little blip of extreme low inventory that in some markets will continue for a while. Where I'm at, we've got a lot of influx of people moving into the region, high job creation. It's going to be a problem for a while. Unless some economic factors come into play that just squash the economy. But market, I'm saying market is what were homes selling for like this one in December or November of 2020. And then based upon that, let me add 15% to that is premium. And we can justify that right now based upon what's happening in the market. And then premium plus might be 25% above what was selling in December because the market's completely insane. People have gone bonkers. They've gone nuts. And people need a place to live. And let's face it, interest rates are still great. It's not a bad move if you're going to be there long enough, right? You just got to be there long enough. And then I think about where would I want my ideal seller pricing in this market today if this were the scenario. And I felt confident that we are still in an okay place. I don't feel like there's big risk factors necessary. At least they haven't shown up yet. My ideal list price would be probably $390,000. That's about 11 or 12% uptick from what market was in December. And then we position ourselves for what I call creating an auction-like atmosphere. If I go too high, if I go to 402, 15% built in, people are already anticipating that they're going to have to bid that up, could deter some folks. If I go to premium plus and build it all in, I may not create that bidding situation, that multiple offer situation, because they may believe that they're going to have to bid that up. And so the ideal scenario possibly for my seller might be to have it on the market put it on the market on a Thursday, send them to a resort for a weekend, come back on Tuesday. We've got all your offers to go through, and we find the one whose terms suits you best, possession suits you best, qualifications are absolutely best. And let's create, by pricing somewhere between this $350 up to $390, an auction-like atmosphere. And then, by the way, if we get 402, we've bid it up a little bit. Odds are that we may get more than that because we created that auction-like environment. We go too high, we may not get the auction-like environment that we seek. Now, what happens when the inevitable shift comes? If you've had high unemployment in your area, there's a lot of forbearance. You want to put a lot of emphasis on this part of the conversation, saying there is a day of reckoning coming when that inventory is going to hit the market. And we're probably going to go a little softer. And we don't want to be up here priced at premium plus when that happens and start chasing a market down. And we may chase it. We don't know where it goes. It may not go to a buyer's market, and yet it may move back towards the middle. And so that is the trend. The trend is moving back towards the middle, maybe beyond it, towards a buyer's market. And yet keep in mind the trend is the direction. It doesn't mean that I'm going from a seller's market to a buyer's market. It just means I'm going from an extreme seller's market to maybe a normal seller's market. where the best houses, the absolute best houses, get 2 or 3 contracts, maybe 5, and most of the others are getting 1. And we're really getting back to some sense of normal. Every market's different. Your job as a trusted advisor is to know your market and then have the right conversation. Now, how you use this in a buyer's market is another conversation that we're not going to go into today. And yet I trust this helps you to think about what are those foundational elements that influence price, and to help the seller understand their choice. I would not advocate necessarily for going to the Premium Plus just because it can be justified, because we don't create the auction-like atmosphere that's going to give us maybe the opportunity to really negotiate the choices that we need around possession and so forth to make sure that our seller has a great situation for them. So I trust you found this helpful. Again, come join us our Never Ending Referrals community. If you're not a part of it, go to NeverEndingReferrals.com. Find out how to take the 8 lessons of Never Ending Referrals and join us for our Thursday interviews with our NER stars and our deep dives on topics like this to help you make the most of the market that you have right now. Take care, folks.